Let's start with this confusion about the schools. You've said this morning people just want clear advice. I guess in the face of such an unprecedented crisis and with different jurisdictions at play, isn't it inevitable that there'll be some element of confusion when...
Look, I think what parents want is some clear advice from the Prime Minister and Premiers. They don't want the Prime Minister and the Premiers arguing about whether it's safe for kids to be going back to school. I'm not saying that for a moment that you would necessarily have the same approach to return to school in every state and territory. Obviously, the COVID-19 virus has got quite a different impact depending on where you are in Australia. There's some states that have high numbers of cases, some states that have low numbers of cases. So that may mean that there's a different approach in the different states and territories. They start school holidays and finish school holidays at different times. That will obviously have an impact. What parents don't want, though, is that the Prime Minister and state leaders seeming to give different advice, or at least confused advice, about whether it's safe for kids to be going back to school now.
Is it different advice? Because from my understanding in terms of the health advice to the National Cabinet, right along from Brendan Murphy down, it's been that it is safe for children, at least, to attend school.
Well, I think we're all keen to see kids back at school as soon as it's safe for them to be back at school. We don't want children unnecessarily missing out on their education. It needs to be safe for kids and it needs to be safe for school staff to start face-to-face teaching again. What's confusing for parents is you've got the Prime Minister seeming to urge parents to start sending kids back to school physically, and you've got state leaders, including Daniel Andrews, and the Victorian schools are due to go back now, saying that parents should keep educating their children at home if they possibly can. What we'd like to see, obviously, we've got a meeting of the Prime Minister and the leaders of the states and territories tomorrow. It would be great to get some consistent advice from that COAG meeting about what the plan is for returning kids to school safely.
But you can understand the Prime Minister's keenness to get kids back to school, back to where they should be.
Yeah, well, I'm a parent with 3 kids who are learning from home, so I'm pretty keen on that too. But we have to take the advice of our health officials. So we absolutely, first, the thing that all parents are concerned about are their kids' health and their kids' education. That predated the coronavirus, the 2 things that you spend most of your time thinking about. So we want schools to be safe for kids and for teaching staff and other school staff as well. That's the most important thing. And then making sure we actually have the dedicated resources to help the kids who have missed out educationally during this time would also be really important. We've got a Prime Minister that has cut funding to public schools, and we need to see that funding available. We know that kids who fall behind, if they don't catch up by the age of 8, they struggle for the whole of their schooling. So we need to make sure that we've got consistency for parents so they know what they're supposed to be doing. We need to make sure that our schools are safe for students and staff, and we need to offer that help to kids who have disengaged during this time or who are struggling with their work when they get back to school.
Do you accept, though, that this is more an OH&S issue for teachers than it is safety for kids? Because all of the medical advice, as I said earlier, is that this virus is not a threat to kids.
Well, we certainly have seen children who have got sick. We've seen some very poor, we've seen kids die from this, particularly overseas. So I don't think we should completely discount the medical advice. And I'm not here to argue about the medical advice. What I'm saying is that it is confusing for parents and adds to the stress they're already feeling when you've got a Prime Minister and Premier saying different things.
Finally, on the universities, they're saying that the government support is not going to be enough to stop the 21,000 estimated job losses. What more should be done? Or is this a situation where, quite simply, when they've had such a massive flow of foreign students stop overnight, that this is just the reality in the face of what is a devastating pandemic?
Well, universities have seen a massive fall in their revenue, that's for sure. They've seen between $3.5 and $4.5 billion wiped off their revenue. And it's certainly, what the government's done is certainly not enough. I mean, they made this announcement about people being able to do discounted courses, and they haven't offered the universities any extra support to offer those courses online. It's actually gobsmacking that they've made this announcement without talking to the universities and asking how the universities would propose to offer such courses. It's not clear whether these short courses will be suitable for employers. That they don't seem to meet any of the existing standards for short courses that employers would be looking for. So it is so very disappointing that on Easter Sunday the government makes an announcement about how they're going to help universities, and when you read the fine print, it's disturbing how little there is in this package. Remember, it's universities right now that are trying to graduate those final year medical students and final year nursing students so they can help on the front line of the COVID-19 battle. It's universities that have done most of the research that would get us towards finding a treatment or cure or a vaccination for COVID-19. They play such an important role, and you particularly see it at times like this. And at times like this, what we've got is a government that's turned its back on universities. It's actually quite shocking to see how little there actually is in this package that would help universities through this crisis.
Shadow Education Minister Tanya Plibersek joining us via Skype. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.